think it's a critically important question.
I think this is a very valid question.
Well, that's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question.
It's very difficult to answer that question.
That's a great question, Neil.
That's a very good question.
That's a really tough question to answer.
It's a good question.
It's a good question.
That is such a good question.
That's an interesting question.
Very good question.
That's a very good question.
That's a good question.
That's a great question, Neil.
I think that's a very good question.
Well, I think that's a good question.
Very good question. Very good question indeed.
So I think you're asking a question that's right on target.
Good question. I see your point.
It's a great question.
This is a good question, Neil.
That's a great question. That's sort of a loaded question.
That's an excellent question because we don't know yet.
I think that's a very interesting question.
Great question, Neil.
That's a really good question. That's a great question.
Well, that's a great question, too.
This is a fantastic question.
You're very good.